Johnny, and with me I've got DJD and Farmer.
Howdy.
What's going on?
And in the back in the booth over there, we've got Craig. What's up, Craig? And let's just get right into it. I'll ask the question to get us started. Is anyone going to get a Switch 2 at launch?
I mean, we don't even know when pre-orders open up right now, so...
I mean, me hearing that they're being tariffed and going to be more expensive. I mean, I was already thinking not, anyways. But oof.
There is that, but we'll wait on the tariffs and all of that. Just as far as the console goes, what are you guys feeling about the Switch 2? What do you think about it?
I think $450 is a fair price considering the specs, considering the fact that it does like up to 120 frames, considering that the screen is 1080 and it can output to 4K through the dock. Like, I think that is essentially, for all intents and purposes, a modern console. I think $450 is a fair price for that. Especially with the way that handhelds have kind of like hit the market running, ever since the original Switch. And so there obviously is a demand for it. And then you also have to factor in the Nintendo factor, right? All the Nintendo exclusives. I think that they have, between the new open world-ish Mario Kart and the Donkey Kong game, I think that there's, and there was also a Kirby game shown, I believe. I think that there's enough there to kind of justify, this is a Nintendo console.
It's interesting,
just the fact that they announced the GameCube, coming, all these titles from the GameCube with Wind Waker being in there is like,
sure.
I'm
That's
almost
true
already
too.
sold now. I mean, wow,
let's talk about upsetting that we've all been wanting Wind Waker forever, and they're really just going to put it on the next just going to do that.
Yeah,
of course.
Yep. No,
they
did it on the previous one, so in fair fashion of Nintendo, they would skip the generation. They did Wii U. They're not going to do Switch 1. They're going to do Switch 2. That tracks.
So there were rumors of like a remaster or something, in progress. I don't necessarily know that those were true, but I think short of doing a remaster or something like that, this makes sense though to do it with the GameCube,
no, totally, with Nintendo Online.
Switch Online.
Yeah. One of the things that the first Switch did, and I remember it from their advertising of okay, it plays well on the handheld, but when you put it in the dock, it gets a little extra power, right, to be able to put it on screen. That is something that the Steam Deck, and I'm assuming the ROG Ally and all the other handhelds do not do.
This is true. Yeah.
I would pay extra, real talk, I would pay extra, even a decent amount, for a Steam dock that would beef up my Steam Deck more. And it's okay, and it would be the same principles as the Switch. Sure, this is playable, but it's not going to be as great on its own. Oh, but if you plug it into your TV, it's going to get a boost in power and help you out. I would really appreciate that. Even if it doesn't change the games it can play, but it just helps it on the bigger screen, right? That would be really sweet. So hearing that the Switch 2 is continuing with that, I appreciate it. It's a really nice feature to make something not just handheld, right? Which, I mean, maybe that's the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally's focus, is they're we don't want you to connect it to a TV. We want you to just play it in your hand, kind of a deal.
And I mean, they do offer docks, but those docks don't add additional power unless you get the ROG has that portable Asus thing, but it's $2,000.
Right.
It's that's most people probably aren't going to be willing to buy that when they're buying a $600 handheld.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole point of buying a handheld, is to not have to spend $2,000 on a computer.
The hard part for me for the Switch 2 is that I'm super sold on the concept of it, but in true Nintendo fashion, despite it having, because it can play Switch 1 games, it has this long list of games you can play, none of the launch titles are super bringing me in. Mario Kart, I hate driving games. I play Mario Kart a lot, but like I'm not about driving games by myself. And Donkey Kong, as much as you love D's the Donkey Kong guy, right? Like Zelda would have really pulled me in. Man, a Star Fox game would have really pulled me in.
I do think that there's got to be a Star Fox game in the works. I don't know who's working on it, but I do think that it has to be like something in progress, considering that it basically skipped the Switch, right? And so, yeah.
Skip the Switch.
So.
When was the most recent Star Fox game?
It's been a while.
Yeah. I mean, but that would be nice for them to come out of the gate with Switch, the Switch 2 and have, better specs. So now that they can do some crazy awesome titles that maybe they've been working on and that the fans have been waiting for forever,
Right.
That would be great.
Well, and here's the hard part. As a Navcast resident complainer, where I love to complain about stuff and crap all over everything, I'm really kind of not about people complaining about the price. It's a really, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, why are people complaining about, so tariffs aside, we haven't even touched that. Tariffs and the price possibly going up. $450 doesn't seem that bad to me for a console like this.
It's not, but the problem is that people got used to that $300 for the original Switch, right? Like that's the main thing.
That's the thing.
Agree,
it's better though.
But like,
it's better than the original Switch. And how much you want to bet they're going to keep selling original Switches?
Considerably.
How much you want to bet they're going to keep selling
Yeah.
original Switches for a while, right? Just be like, oh yeah, you can still buy the original Switch. Are they going to mark that down? No, definitely not. It's Nintendo we're talking about. But the prices, and then let's talk the prices of games, right? They brought up like games are going to be like $80 or something like that. And then people were like, oh man, with tax it's going to be $90, and people were upset about it. It's just,
well, that I kind of sort of get, but it's more like that was inevitable. That was bound to happen at some point. Right. It's kind of upsetting that Nintendo's kind of like the forerunner of that, but that also was going to happen. Like, we all knew it. It was just a matter of who would be the first to like try to do that. And I think most of us probably thought that like it would probably happen with, I mean, if we ever actually thought about it, that it would probably happen with like the next generation of consoles,
Are we talking about it going to $80? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, the price increasing by $10. Yeah. I think that essentially that was definitely going to happen. I think there was an idea that would happen with the next generation of consoles, just like the 60 to 70 happened over like a generational change. And like it being a Nintendo console that's kind of leading the charge on that kind of caught people off guard. But I mean, like, I think it's natural for people to complain about the price of games going up. I think that the nature of the complaints is kind of silly. Like, like games are just becoming like unable to be purchased now. Like, I mean, like that's not true. Like, it's $10 more. Yeah, it's $10 more. Like, I mean, it's not like it's $50 more.
Yeah, I mean, look at eggs. I mean, you just don't eat your eggs for like a day or two. And you could make that up.
But it's also like, oh my god, games are going to be non-purchasable. But it's like the most popular games are free. Right? The most popular games that people play are straight up free. Like, I saw this great thing on Threads where someone was like, I think at concerts, bands shouldn't charge you $2 for a sticker. They should just give you the sticker for free. I'm a fan. I came to the concert. And the top comment on it is, how about because you listen to the music basically for free from Spotify, why don't you just pay them $2 for a sticker? Like, and it's like, on these consoles, the most played game I've been playing recently has been Marvel Rivals. It's free, right? Like, complaining about, I don't know. I've always had a touchy feeling about like gamers complaining about like the prices of games because it's just such a nebulous, crazy thing, right? Like $80 for Mario Kart World. How many hours do you think people put into Mario Kart?
Right, exactly.
Right.
And like The crazy thing too is that they think that Nintendo cares about them complaining, because guess what? Nintendo doesn't.
Nintendo
Out of all the
really-
companies to care about you complaining, Nintendo's going to be like the least, like, receptive to those criticisms.
when you're playing a game that has that high caliber or something like that you really enjoy, like me personally, I'm gonna do less like multiple quantities. I'm just gonna do a few really good ones, and I don't mind investing. Like if it's worth it, if it's worth me investing my time, I will pay the money. And
Right.
I guess maybe not everybody has that mentality, but I mean that I'd rather have less quantity and more quality, and spend a little extra.
Yeah.
Hands down, every time.
Well, that, and like, to be honest, right? Like $90 or $80. Sorry, it's not 90. $80 now. It doesn't go as far as $60 did before. You know what I mean? Like, that's a part of it too. Of like, inflation. That's a thing. And
But also, guys, like, people earn more, and the cost of living wages has outpaced inflation pretty much consistently throughout this time.
But stuff just costs more. Just period.
Yeah.
Stuff costs more, and
they might make more, but they're spending more. That's
you might make more. Exactly. People are spending more,
but like, again, like, the primary problem is that, like, habits have changed in terms of spending, where people spend a lot more, but that's like a choice, right? And so, like,
right.
Yeah, we've conditioned ourselves over the past, especially 10, 15 years, especially with like phones and subscriptions and stuff like that. Like, those are part of our life now, instead of when they were first introduced, it was like, well, I could live without it. But now it's like phones. You got to get the new phone. Not everybody has to have the new phone, but a lot of people do get the new phone, and then they make separate budgets for just that, and that just changes your whole, way you're spending things. It's just going to change it all.
Man, you talk about that. I'm over here like, phones and stuff. I'm like, do I need to have Discord Nitro? $10 a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. Like, we are all like heavy on subscriptions in terms of like, just like as a culture, Like, I mean, like, there's like multiple like streaming services, and like, if you don't have those, then you're kind of left out of conversations, Like, I mean, I can't talk about Severance with Johnny because he hasn't seen it, because he doesn't have Apple TV Plus or whatever, I mean, like, that is a kind of real thing.
The best part is I also don't really want it. That's the even better part. Is David is dying to talk with. Severance is going to go up there with Lost.
I mean, that's
just like, listen.
We're kind of in that day and age, because they have an app that is literally for finding all these subscriptions that you can't find, that you're wasting money
that's
on.
True.
There's literally apps for that kind of thing, and that's a problem, because people is like, I have no idea what I'm spending every month, because this just comes out of my checking.
Well, but also, especially over the past, like, since the pandemic, right? Like, over the past, like, 5 years, like the number of subscription that people have, the number of like things that people do, like with like a disposable income, where like they eat out all the time, or like DoorDash and Uber Eats and all that jazz, or like they get their groceries delivered or whatever. Like, that's a huge thing that's changed a lot over the past 5 years. Like, it was slowly going up, and then COVID just made it skyrocket. And so a lot of people are spending like money on like these luxury, like, premium services that like ordinarily they wouldn't maybe have necessarily jumped to. And like, that makes it feel like we all have less money, I feel like.
But they've, you get used to it, and you like it. You like it so well that you're not going to go away.
That's the problem. It's really easy to adapt to like a better lifestyle. It's really difficult to adapt to a lesser lifestyle, unless like you're forced to.
Going back. I mean, it's like, okay. Perfect example. Going from 720 to 1080p for the first time, or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
Like, like, you can't. You're I'm good, and then
let's tell the story. Farm. When was the first time you saw HD?
Dude,
do you remember the first time? I remember the first time.
Oh yeah, I remember. The first actually is when I bought. I think it was around Reach time, because I bought a new TV and I was able to use HDMI with my new Xbox 360 that I got. It was one of the newer ones that came out, and I plugged up that thing, and man, it was just beautiful. But then I went back because I had a different console with the cables, the AV cables and everything. And you're just like, how could I handle this? I can't play on this anymore. Not saying I can't, but I'm just saying it's just night and day. It's just so night and day. You're like, I can read the text now. That was the problem.
Well, that was the biggest thing. That was absolutely the biggest thing for me, was like switching to HD and being able to read the text, Like, that was a wild game changer. It's like, oh, wow. Like, that text that looked kind of blurry that I guess I could squint and read, now it's just like super visible. Like, right. That was the biggest thing. Yeah. Dude, probably like Halo Reach or something like that. Like, I mean, the 360 days. For a while, I was actually a big proponent, for some reason, I don't know why, of using component cables. Not like the composite like 3, but like the component, like the additional, like you had the red.
No, those made it better.
Blue, yellow, and then the green, and then like the whatever the
no, those brought it up quite a bit. But HDMI just like changed our lives.
Yeah.
I remember for me, it was Halo Reach, and specifically, like, I remember just being like, I don't need it. These component cables are fine. Everything's fine. I really like it. I'm happy. And then David came over with that HDMI cable, and he plugged it in, and I remember looking at Halo Reach and just being so impressed with it. But then not just that, a little bit of a throwback, David loaded up Fable 3, and it's exactly what you said, Farm. I could read the text. Right? On like the loading screens, I could read it. And this sounds so crazy, right? To people who didn't experience this shift from like just not HD to HD, where like, yeah, you just couldn't always read it, or like you kind of, you had to squint or whatever.
Yeah, you had to get
or have like a really big TV, and then it would be blurry on the TV or whatever. Yeah.
He's like, wait, can we pause? I need to read this.
Well, and it's crazy too, because like everybody who doesn't understand that, who didn't live through that time and remember it very well, like thinks that HD was just like a switch, like turning on and off. Like everybody, like it was just like, oh, a new generation, boom, HD. It's like, no, it didn't happen like that. Like technology is always like incremental, in terms of like,
and you always
there's always a bleed over. There's always a transition period, I mean, like, yeah.
Always got the slow movers who are just dragging, and then you got the people that are trending on the technology, so they'll have the latest and greatest. But it's not all at the same time by any means. And it took a while for like I'm thinking about USB ports too, whole shifting between 1.0 to 2.0, 3.0, and so on, and all that is just like those were also like shifts as well. And it's just it's just crazy to see where we've come. Yeah.
Well, and all of that to say, going back, I don't feel like the Switch 2 is not worth the money. And it's hard because I just feel like it's hard because you don't want to say people aren't allowed to complain, but it's just like people are going to pay the money, right? And one of the things that came up recently with my son, when because we were moving, and he brought it up, was he was hanging out with me and such, and we're going around and doing all of this stuff, and he was like, man, as a grown-up, everything costs, right? As I'm going back and forth, filling things out, having to pay these fees, paying this. He was like, everything costs. And I was like, you know what, Johnny? That is really a great lesson. Yes. When you're a grown-up, you have to pay for everything. And you just don't realize it. Like, and it's like, you want this? You like this? Guess what? It's not free. You got to pay for it. Yeah. And, the Switch 2, all I'd say, I don't plan on getting one at launch. Like there's just, it's not that it hasn't convinced me, but like I have no reason to buy one at launch, if that makes sense. Like there's not a game on it that I'm like super pumped for.
You're not pumped for that Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour that's a paid game that you have to pay $10 to get, that's like a tutorial of how to use the system? You're not pumped about that?
That's the most Nintendo thing I've heard in a long time.
Like at first it's like okay, this is just like a tutorial, like kind of like interactive thing. Okay, that's kind of cute, I guess. Sure. And then they say paid game, and I'm like, what? What? It's not
Yeah.
even a game. Okay, all right, whatever. Like you talk to like these like really like it's not well animated or anything, and you talk to like these little like blobs of people or whatever who then tell you like, oh, you can connect your Joy-Cons via the magnets. Like, like it's like okay, all right.
Yeah, and you're like, I know.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the list of games and like first party, it doesn't have it, right? It just like if you're really excited about Mario Kart World, cool, like I could see that. Or Donkey Kong Bonanza like me, cool. But otherwise, like I mean everything else is like just like, old games that have like new additions. So they might have additional content, but like ultimately like but that's also like I don't know. I feel like Nintendo does a really good job generally of pacing things out and not letting things run over each other with their first party lineup. And I think that
agreed.
this is very much like them trying to like pace things out for the first year, Like you've got new hardware and everything. You've got enough of a reason to buy potentially. Maybe not you, Johnny, but like, they're often like I think we've all agreed that it's kind of worth the price. The new features, the fact that it's now holding like third party games, like if I didn't have a ROG Ally, I'd be kind of tempted to I'd be sold. I really would be. I'd be like, yeah, no, day one, no matter what the tariff cost is or whatever. Because like
actually.
to have like Cyberpunk 2077 on like a freaking handheld sounds great, or Hitman World of Assassination or like Split Fiction or, like all these other like third party games that ordinarily I'd be playing on Xbox. I'd love to have those on a handheld. Now I have the ability to. So, I mean, like,
Right.
I don't know. I would imagine that there's a bunch of people who still haven't jumped into the handheld market who would absolutely buy this just because this is, you get both your Nintendo games and these third party games that like now you can play in the handheld.
Well, we would say they haven't jumped into the handheld market, but a lot of these people would have Switches. So they do.
Well, that's true. That's true.
They are in the handheld market, but it's on pretty aged hardware.
Well, and also I think
that didn't have those
common
third-party games.
Right.
Right.
I also think a lot of people are, let's say I've got a PC or I've got a console, and then I've got my phone. Isn't my phone the handheld device? I think a lot of people have that mentality too. Is like, well, okay, I can play it on my phone. I'll just use my phone. And instead of realizing that, okay, there's this whole other market for having handhelds. And there's, as we've seen, and as, especially David, has shown us, like, there is definitely a room, like a space that, handheld is great for, and
I love that he says you, not like I've been preaching about like the Steam Deck for like
a year. It's been Dave. No, he paid me to do that. It's not.
But David's talked about for his handheld experience.
I was big on cloud gaming before you even got the Steam Deck, though. To be fair, but I mean,
let's be fair, Johnny. Up until you got the Steam Deck,
but also like cloud gaming is an inferior experience still, even now today. It's definitely a very inferior experience to having games actually installed on a handheld device. And also, like,
all I can say is go figure. I mean,
playing games on your handheld is just way preferable to like playing games on your phone and then not having access to your phone.
Right. Or getting interrupted in your game when you get a phone call or you get a message or something.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also better to burn up that battery, right, on the portable instead of your phone because, anxiety. And we have, Johnny in the background.
I'm not about that.
Battery anxiety there. So he has to have extra batteries.
Let me check my battery on my phone right now. What are we at? 79%. Oh my gosh. Okay. It's fine.
So I had something earlier that might even freak you out, Johnny. We were listening to an audiobook. Me and the kids, we go through and do that at night, and it just died. It said I was like at 15%, but it just drained it. Whatever I was doing, I guess, man, it got down there and it died.
Well,
my phone died. I had to go find the charger and plug it back in.
I can't even remember the last time like that happened. I would be thinking my phone is about, like, for me, and maybe this isn't for everybody, if it's under 10%, it's dead. I'm not touching it. I'm not using it. It's basically dead. But also, on the flip side, this is like an important one. Like, I've brought this up. I try to carry batteries around with me sometimes if I'm on a trip. But, like, if I'm like taking public transportation in Japan, my card to pay is on my phone.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, like, if it dies,
So
it's
Johnny,
actually a huge
I can
problem.
see him right now. He has this fanny pack, but it's not of money. it's battery packs.
It's a battery pack.
Booster packs.
Yeah.
He's just running around his ankles, around his waist.
I guess
all these batteries.
Going back to the Switch 2, I feel like it's not a perfect console. I'm not about like defending, I just feel like
console.
There's no perfect console. And the thing is that I just feel like the price, while maybe people are unhappy about it, I feel like it's not unwarranted, like you said, D, right? Like, it's a pretty big upgrade. That stuff costs, games costing more. Nobody wants to have the conversation about how, like, a $60 game, would have been this much nowadays. But, like, also development and all of that stuff goes into it. And, stuff just costs more. And maybe
Well, they're developing whole worlds instead of what they used to. I mean, this is like whole industries focusing all their time and building these massive experiences, opposed to just doing these quick. I'm not saying that developing back in the day wasn't intense. I'm sure they spent their time, but it's
but
just
you can't compare.
They've made it to a different place. Yeah, they've scaled it up. It's almost
different.
like movie. What a lot of these games are developed with scores, and I mean all that stuff costs. You can't just get any composer to do any of that for just cheap money. I mean, to have a whole score along with what you're trying to develop. I mean, it's huge.
And there's a thriving indie market on PC, right? And kind of on consoles of like games that are cheaper, built by smaller teams that you can get. And I understand like the worry of like, oh, but if Nintendo does it now, every game is going to go up to $80. It's another
which will happen,
$10 jump.
By the way. Like that.
Yeah,
that is
no, exactly.
Happen,
it's going to happen.
But, yeah.
And maybe if I was a teenager who didn't make money, that would bother me a lot more. And it would be even harder for me to scrounge together stuff to, be able to buy these games. But that being said, those teenagers have a huge amount of free games.
Right.
That they
what
can
about
play
us
that
teenagers
are awesome.
who didn't have all these amazing free-to-play games? I mean, I just want to throw that out there.
But also, too, like the difference between $70 and $80, honestly, is pretty negligible. And if the price of being a gamer is that like things increase is like every like 7 or 8 or 10 years or whatever. I think it's been like 10 years since the $10 increase from 60 to 70 at this point. Maybe
I have no idea.
Like,
I
mean,
have no idea.
It was close to like
I think that's pretty like understandable. I mean, it's not great, and yeah, we could reach a point to where like people start getting priced out of it, but I don't think like the jump from 70 to 80 is pricing people out. I don't think it is. If you're buying a $70 game, you'll probably still buy the game if it's 80. I mean, like,
even there
at that point,
80 is
I mean, we've
closer
got
to 100 than it is to 50, right? 70 is still closer to 50 than it is to 100. Now we're inching toward $100. I understand that. Of like, if you say it's $80, that's basic. You know what I mean? Oh, that's 80 is basically 100, as opposed to 70. Oh, well, it's like it's a little more than 50.
Yeah, I mean, 70 is basically 100 too. I mean,
but exactly. That's how 50, I feel too. It's our
but the thing is, okay, so sure, okay, maybe we can't, buy as many games. I guess this is my thought. Okay, I can't buy as many games, but the ones I do, I make sure I really want them. But there's so many other avenues of free to play games or subscription services or really all these indie titles. There's no reason why you can't find games to play, So I don't understand it myself. There's games out there, and if you really want a game, you're gonna wait for it. You're gonna save up for it. I mean, I did that.
Yeah.
I still do that.
Right. Well, that and I mean, we haven't even touched on yet the tariffs in that whole
Right.
debacle and how this
Yeah.
is going to affect. This is my favorite thing about, by the way, really quick before we get into it. Hey guys, just a heads up, Sony and Nintendo are both non-American companies. So like, Japan is getting hit with a 24% tariff. Guess what? Guess what, guys? Like, people are going to start liking Microsoft possibly way faster.
Yeah, but Microsoft will still
than
be
I
hit by
realized.
that too, right? Because they don't.
No, exactly.
They don't like build their consoles just in the United States, and they like import parts and stuff, and like all that.
most of it.
So I mean, and that's the thing too is also when
And
the
we don't
market
need to
gets more
break down
expensive,
how
the
tariffs
prices
work.
domestically get more expensive too. But yeah,
But we don't need to break down how tariffs work to our listeners. But this is not good for anybody. This isn't good for the consumers. This is not good for the businesses. It's not good for any of us.
It's good if you want to in-house everything in the States. That's about it.
But that's over the course of like a decade or more, decades.
It's going to take time.
In terms of building up an industry that like you largely have like not had or whatever, like to replace like the industry that you've been like essentially importing or whatever, like that's a long process. And like the costs are felt immediately, So
Well,
I mean, like
it will be
ultimately
passed on
tariffs
to
are
the
just
consumers.
Yeah,
It will be passed on to the consumers.
Yeah.
And the Switch 2, did they announce their price like the day before the tariffs were announced or something like that? Something ridiculous, like right before.
Yeah, at first I was a little confused because they didn't announce it in the direct. They announced it on their like blog or whatever on their website.
Mm-hmm.
But it was April 4th, I think, right? I think was when Switch thing dropped.
Something like that. I don't remember exactly. I've not been following it super closely, but what I did follow is that they have delayed pre-orders for the Switch 2, right? They've not canceled them, they have delayed them. And they also haven't canceled the launch or delayed the launch, just the pre-orders, correct? Am I right on that? I believe so.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, they said that they're not delaying the launch, which I think is a smart decision by them. But that they are delaying the pre-orders at least for the U.S. market.
Yes, just for the U.S. market, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a flip on this. Some people are bringing up a lot of people did not like Nintendo's $450 price point, and so. But the issue being is that with the tariffs in place and just the uncertainty, like that's what they're quoting, right? The uncertainty in the U.S. market.
They'd be like, "Oh, you didn't like the 450? Now it's 550."
Nintendo is a company they could bite and absorb some of that. Like people already weren't happy with the price before, but will they do that or not? It's really interesting to see. Like even gaming gets affected by stuff like this.
Right. Well, Nintendo specifically came out and said like the 450 was not counting tariffs or anything. Which I thought was a pretty good statement for them to make, just because that sets expectations that it will be more expensive.
Yeah, it's better than waiting, because a lot of times they want to wait and then like, hey, pre-orders are ready to go, but guess what?
But also
hike it
like
up.
that again, like that sets like also like confidence in their price point of like, no, this is worth 450, and I think that was important to like communicate as well, like that this isn't just a price that's like just to like make up for the United States crazy economic policies, like this is like a huge upgrade, and so we're pricing it like accordingly.
Right. And well, usually, I mean, as we know, most of these companies and all of these companies, honestly, on their console, they don't make money on the console. They never have, and they probably never will, because you know how expensive it is to manufacture those things anyways, to even get it to a price point where people want to buy it. So, I mean, I can only imagine how much it's actually costing them.
Nintendo, I don't know if they're doing
the exception of that. Usually.
Nintendo's the exception. I don't know if they're doing it for this one, though, because it is so much more beefed up. But the reason their consoles have always been behind on power is because they actually do make a profit on their console sales.
Interesting.
From the GameCube forward, they have done that, and they make a lot of money just on console sales. So like they don't even need the game sales to make up for it, and that's kind of they aim to profit on hardware. I don't know if they do.
I guess that explains
for
why they're
this
not
one,
pressured
but-
to get certain titles out at any time. They just get them
Exactly.
when they want to.
Yeah, because every sale they make is there.
And when it sells super well, they can support it for a long time. And when it doesn't, like the Wii U, they can not.
Well, and there's an interesting development with that. So the Japanese yen, as of recording this, is, let's see, 147.5 Japanese yen to the US dollar. So for reference, so I've been living in Japan for 10 years. An easy rule of thumb when I moved here 10 years ago was 1 yen was equal to 1 cent. And 100 yen was equal to $1. And that's also how it works in Japan. Like, does that make sense? Like, it's not just the currency conversion, but like, you could get like a bottle of Coke for like 120 yen, like $1.20, right? Mm-hmm. Kind of a deal. But good. Since COVID, the yen has been super weak. It's been like you've been getting like an extra 50 cents to the dollar, so to speak. It's been in the 140s to the 160s. And because of that, they are making a region-locked switch. So they're making a region-locked switch that's going to be, I think it's like either 45,000 Japanese yen or close to 50, or like 49,000, which in local currency is the equivalent of like 450 to $500, right? If you're making Japanese yen, it's going to feel like just like it does in the rest of the world, $450. But in dollars, let me quick pull that up. Let's say 49,000. In dollars, it's only $330. But again, this has to do with like currency and the strength of it and making dollars versus making yen, right? To Japanese people, it feels like $450. To Americans, it's $300. But because of that, they're making a Japan region locked switch. So it's going to be locked into Japanese language, and it's going to be locked to Japanese Nintendo accounts.
Yeah.
And so Japanese people can play it, but they will also sell the international one. Well, so I want to clarify. So that you could buy other games, but you just have to play them in Japanese, and your account has to be Japanese.
Right.
So like, for me, my Nintendo account with every Nintendo game I've purchased and all of that stuff, I can't use it.
Right.
Period.
Right. So
they're selling the international version, which is going to be available everywhere else in the world for 20,000 yen more, like $200 more, which puts it on par with the prices worldwide.
Right. Right. So that's kind of cool.
It's cool for Japanese
in a way,
people.
For Japanese people that are,
And they're saying they're trying to do it. Well, they're not saying, but the thought is that they're trying to do it to stop scalpers, right? So people can't just fly to Japan, take advantage of the weak yen, and buy up a bunch of Switches, and then go back to their country and sell them.
Yeah, because people get boxes and boxes of those things like that.
And
we've seen it.
For me, as a musician, I actually make US dollars, so it's not the biggest deal for me to spend the extra money and buy the international version. But the international community in Japan is very upset about it because a lot of them make Japanese yen. They work at Japanese companies, right? But Japanese isn't their native language. And they feel like they're being punished because they have to pay an extra $200 to get, an international Switch. And my favorite comment on that online is people are saying, just learn Japanese. I would say a lot of people do speak Japanese and even read and write it. But so Chiho, who you guys met, she's fluent in English. She prefers to play games in Japanese because she doesn't have to think about it, right? She doesn't have to translate anything. It's just simple, right?
It's your common language.
Yeah, it's your native language.
You just boom, boom, boom.
And that's even something as simple as Marvel Rivals, where you're not even really reading, right? Could you imagine playing a non-voice acted word heavy RPG and you have to translate in your head everything? Especially, you get back
trying to
from
relax
work.
And then you have to do linguistic things. Nah, yeah, that I'm not down with that.
And so it's an interesting problem that only affects 5% of the market in Japan. So who really cares? I get it. But it's interesting because when I first moved here, I moved here with an Xbox One. I left my Xbox 360, and it was in the era where they were beginning to stop region locking. Do you remember this, D?
Yes.
And region locks, like before, consoles and stuff were region locked, and when I moved here, this one wasn't, and it was such a big deal that, wow, they're not region locking anymore. It's going to be so great. It's really weird that in the 10 years I've lived abroad, I'm kind of seeing a step back toward that, you know? It's just an interesting thing I thought would be nice to bring up on the podcast.
It's one
I
of those
almost
things.
wonder.
I was just going to say it's
Sorry,
one of
go
those
ahead, Norm.
things that because people like the scalpers, manipulate the system, you can't have nice things. And
Exactly.
while the open region is great, the whole problem that they've seen the problem that it's been incurring, and I get it, and you hate it. It's the whole thing with kind of in a way like with the whole crossplay. Like there's just people don't want to play nice, and but you hope for those things to happen, and it's really sad when things go backwards. Unfortunately,
It really is. It really is. But what's up, D?
I also think that this is actually like part of the whole like region locking thing might be like an attempt to like make it a little bit more difficult to like get around the fact that like I feel like economies are becoming far more different again,
Mm-hmm.
like that, like essentially like we're seeing a more greater divergence than we've seen in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so like part of it might be trying to account for that and like keep people from like, abusing that, so to speak. But
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
We'll see. It's one of those things going forward too, is just uncertainty. Will there be a Switch 2 launch? How much is it going to cost? I do plan on buying one, but when that's going to be, I have no idea. I didn't quite wait a year for my original Switch, but I waited for a while. And they had Breath of the Wild, which was like a huge draw for me, right? Big Zelda fan, love open world games. So I could probably wait out the Switch 2 for a little bit, especially because I have a Steam Deck, right? So like, what first party Switch 2 game is going to be the game to get me to buy a whole console to play it? And let me tell you, it's not Mario Kart.
it would have to. I don't know at this point.
Despite the fact that, like, I mean, like, when it comes down to it, Mario Kart, like, and I feel like that's pretty normal. I feel like not a ton of. I'm sure that there's a ton. I guess I shouldn't say that. There's a ton of people who live and die by Mario Kart. I don't necessarily know that this one is going to do it for some of those people, though. Like, I think it looks really cool, but I think anytime you try something very, very new, like that can push away some of your like hardcore audience. But we'll see.
There are a group, I don't know how big the group is, but there are a group of Zelda fans who hate Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom because it doesn't have traditional dungeons. It doesn't have like a traditional linear Zelda gameplay, and what they say they're not real Zelda games.
Yeah, you look enough on Reddit threads, and you find there's always a hate group. There really is. You got you think about Halo, all the classics. You got the Halo 1, the Halo 2 fans, the Halo all the way up. You got your Reach people.
Are there Halo 5 fans yet? I feel like that one.
There are now. There are. Shockingly, I don't know why, but yeah, like
no,
it's one of those things where
plenty of people that loved it, grew up with it.
Well, I think that's part of it is like growing up with it, but also I think that whenever something new comes out, that you look more fondly at like older things that you enjoyed or whatever.
I know plenty of people on all those levels of like, oh, I'm a Halo 1 guy, that kind of thing.
Well, like we talk about this all the time, and Johnny and I are kind of thrilled about it a little bit. But like, I mean, like the number of people who now like really love Phantom Menace unironically, Like, I mean, like,
oh, dude, I saw a post the other day.
Standing by that movie.
It's like finally, we got fans that
and
are
I'm not
backing
gatekeeping
us.
that. I'm welcoming everyone into the family.
Yeah,
right? Let's go.
Yeah.
Phantom Menace love.
So, dude, I saw a post the other day that Phantom Menace and the original trilogy is just as old now as the original trilogy was when that came out. Isn't that crazy?
No.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Feel old? Anybody?
Oh, have you? My favorite is I saw a meme about how they're like, George Lucas really made a trilogy about a republic becoming an empire, starting with a trade war, and but we were too busy. We were too busy looking at the laser swords. And I was yeah, that is the cool part of Star Wars, the laser sword fights. That's what's up. Oh, God, the Phantom Menace. We should go back and we should do a watch party for Phantom Menace. What a great movie!
That would be a great idea. Yeah.
What a great movie. No notes. Perfect. I don't want to say perfect, but fantastic. Fantastic. But you guys got any closing comments on this, our first Tariffed episode?
I mean,
coming from Japan.
I have a lot more to say about the Switch, but I feel like we can save that for next episode. None of it's
he has more to say, but he's gonna switch it off for now.
We could talk about the virtual cards.
Oh yeah,
how we feel about those or whatever. It's honestly, it's funny. It's because it's essentially in different words. But it's essentially the same plan that that Steam kind of has, and B, that Microsoft introduced with the Xbox One announcement, and got majorly criticized for, with Sony doing their whole, and this is how we do used games, and they just give a game to a person. Yeah. It's hey, PlayStation, where are you right now? Because Nintendo's doing the same thing.
Well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to wrap up on that though, it's just a continuation of the road we're already on.
Right.
Right.
It's nothing new.
It's interesting for me to see people get upset when it's well, I can see why you would be upset, but we've been on this, you don't own the game, you own a license. Haven't we been having that conversation for 10 years?
Well, and this seems like a really cool thing. This seems hey, if your friend wants to play a single player game that you've beat or whatever, you can lend it to them for 2 weeks or whatever, Or there's also that whole game sharing thing that they have where with certain games that you can essentially lend it out to the people around you to play with you. Can
we go back even farther?
Cool.
Can we go back even farther? Let's talk about Age of Empires 2. Did you guys played Age of Empires 2 on PC back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So for me to play Age of Empires back in the day, so you would install it onto your computer. So for the kids listening, you bought a CD with a game on it, and you would put that CD into your computer. Your computer at the time had a tray specifically for this.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
It pops out,
It pops out. You would push a button and it would pop out. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't the one that actually fed in. It was the one that had the tray that popped out.
Yeah,
and every once in a while, you have to be careful because that whole gear system, it was run by a rubber, a rubber pulley system, and it would pop. You have to replace it.
And you would install the game. So you would put the CD in, and you would install the content of the CD onto your computer, and then you could play the game. But you had to have the CD in the computer to play the game, but it turns out, and I learned this from my uncle, you only had to have the CD in there when you launched the game.
Well, with some
because
games,
that's
yes. Yeah.
Well, with this game, I'm talking Age of Empires 2 specifically.
Age of Empires 2 specifically.
You only had to have it in there to launch the game, and so what I would do, or I was playing on the Conquerors expansion specifically, I would launch it, and then I would open my CD drive, and the game would continue to run. And I would put that then into another computer, and I would launch it there, and I would launch up a bunch of Age of Empires games, and I only had one disc, right? that I just installed on all the computers because
that's how you worked multiplayer back in the day.
Yeah, because guess what, guys? Can you believe it? The game wasn't on the disc. It was just a license that it would check, and then it would run the game. Drive. Oh, just in the hard drive. Almost kind of like these Switch things that it's it's just checking. You have to have it. It's not that different, guys. Everything that's old is new.
It's like everything. Nothing runs on that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey guys, pre-check. your Blu-ray of the game, if you pop that in, it's not going to work either.
It's a security check, going all the way back to Phantom Menace. Security.
They're counting your metachlorians.
So here's the
Hold on.
question now. With Xbox having like tried to do this before, with this specific kind of thing where you have like a group of people that you can lend games out to or whatever, do we think that Xbox will try to bring it back now that Switch has kind of like burst open the door, and they probably won't like walk it back because they don't do that?
Because Nintendo doesn't do that. Because Nintendo has way more guts than Microsoft does.
I mean, ultimately, yes. Like, unironically, yes.
True enough. Yeah. I mean, Xbox, sometimes doesn't stick to their guns.
Sometimes they don't stick to their.
I mean, like, I could potentially maybe see like Xbox like re-implementing this idea. Like, they obviously had it working at some point on the Xbox One. Like, I mean.
They're usually just ahead of the times. We've talked about this before.
Again, yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just like Microsoft just being too early on things, and then, like everyone hating it, and then someone else does it like 5 to 10 years later, and
they're not only are they too early, but then like whatever it is that they have written up is just terrible, and it's just like who wrote this? Who did this? Like, why did you guys say that? Don't say that like that. Like, it's so ridiculous.
And to be fair, the way that Nintendo introduced like this virtual game card thing was pretty bad. Like, it was pretty confusing the way that they described it and everything. It was about as confusing as Microsoft's initial attempt. But it's later, and people just understand digital games a little bit more and everything. And also, like, Nintendo's never done something like this before. So, I mean, like, like they have like the dedicated and secondary system kind of thing. That everyone else has, but like in terms of like sharing your games, your virtual games, like that's a thing that a lot of people have gotten annoyed with Nintendo specifically because your game is locked to the hardware. And so like not your account. And so
right.
I don't know. Like I think that there's a certain amount of like grace that Nintendo's getting here that like is not necessarily warranted with the way that they explain this, but like also like ultimately people hopefully maybe understand things a little bit better now that everything is online and does require being online.
I think that the grace given to it though is it's also I think really flown under the radar compared to the bigger issue of not being sure about the price of it and all of that stuff.
Going forward. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
But
I mean, like them opening the door for this, I think that like Microsoft could absolutely implement like family plans or whatever. Like they've been rumored to like have in the works or whatever for like literally since the Xbox One launch. I mean, I could see that happening. I could see essentially, what's cool about this? What's cool about Nintendo doing new things or whatever and doing like things in like a modern, relatively quote unquote way on a modern quote unquote like console is that it actually does lend itself to more competition for the other companies where it's like, okay, because like before they didn't need to care what Nintendo was doing. It's like it didn't matter. But now like Nintendo's like actually like in the game now, like people might actually buy a Nintendo console rather than an Xbox or a PlayStation because like their games might be there, I mean like
Well, on that note, if you don't live in the United States, go ahead and go pre-order a Switch 2. And if you live in the United States, enjoy that liberation. Make sure you
that's right. Pre-orders
give us a thumbs up or something, or subscribe. Tell someone about the podcast. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye. Get out of here, Craig.